And just like that, welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Hockey Show, a day and about 15 minutes late because of technical difficulties. Um, just realizing that all my banners aren't quite here. Ah, here they are. Okay. Just pulling it up, coming at you from parts unknown. Michael Darrell alongside Rick Petty. Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties. And yesterday was the dawn show and a half on my way to the show. So we're here, but a day late and 15 minutes late. Our apologies. But we act like a pregame show for the Winnipeg Jets and the LA Kings, getting set to go in about 43 minutes from downtown Winnipeg. I'm Michael Gell. My co-host is Rick Petty. Good evening, Rick. How are you?
Good evening, Michael. Very well. How about you?
Much better. Now that things are semi under control, and I'm happy to talk hockey a day late, but better late than never, and maybe more appropriate than it is today. Um, and I'll get you to reflect on something just off the top of the show here.
Sure.
And that is the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade from the Winnipeg Jets to the LA Kings. And that deal, for those that aren't familiar, was Pierre-Luc Dubois and a pick to the LA Kings for Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kapari, and Gabriel Velarde, as well as a future pick in this upcoming draft. So, how do you now? I understand that teams have only played 2 or 3 games under this trade reconstruction, so to say, and sometimes to judge a trade takes multiple years. Has your opinion on the trade changed months later?
No, I don't know for you. I know you're asking me, and I'll get you to respond to your own inquiry after I'm done. But it's hard for me. It's hard to evaluate after, like you say, 2 games. On the initial trade, I thought, wow, that's getting a lot back for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's only 1 year away from free agency. But they signed him. No, did they sign him and then trade him? Was it a
Yeah,
signing?
yeah. So the Winnipeg Jets were able to sign him to an 8-year contract.
Right,
As such, they sent Dubois plus the 8-year contract
right.
to LA. If
Right.
LA would have signed him, they were only able to give him 7 years.
Right. So that's what he did. So he knew what he was getting. I'm sure that was all negotiated and so on. So on the surface, it looks like the Jets got back lots on it. Now there's a part of me, and maybe I'll throw that out there and get your opinion.
Yep.
I always find, like, if you think about the trades, and I'll just use the most famous one, Wayne Gretzky going in 1980, 83, 84, no, 84, 85, 67. I think it was 89, I think 88 or 89, where he went to LA, and LA traded back to the Oilers. The Oilers got Jimmy Carson. They got a few other players, and they got a whole bunch of draft picks, and they got cash. Back then you could trade money, and Peter Pocklington, the owner at the time, he needed money. So he got money back for Gretzky.
Rob said, by the way, just to interject, Rob says 1988.
Was 88. Yeah, I think it was after they won the cup in 80, because they won in 84, 85, lost in 86, or they didn't make it. It was actually the Habs that won in 86, and they won 87, 88. Yeah, so summer of 88. But anyway, the point of the point is, I think the team that gets the best player usually wins, because look at what the Oilers sent over Wayne Gretzky and the Marty McSorley, and the Oilers got back a whole bunch of stuff, Jimmy Carson, a bunch of other very good players, but they're not Wayne Gretzky, right? So I'm just saying, on the surface, there's a part of me that says, as great as the pieces are, they're not Pierre-Luc Dubois, because he's just a step above whatever any of those guys are individually and even together. But then there's the other side of me that evaluates it this way and says the Jets now, from going from one second line center to now having 3 guys that they've added to 3 different lines, plus a draft pick, you could argue the Jets are, and I think they are more deep. I think they're more balanced. I think they have much more talent. Their fourth line is an upgrade overall in quality, talent, ability from last year. Their third line has got a huge bump up by having Alex Iafallo now playing on there, even though I have nothing against Morgan Barron. But I'm saying Alex Iafallo has a little bit more scoring touch, a little bit more speed. They already have Appleton and Lowry, who are large. Morgan Barron's a big cat too. But now you put Iafallo, and he's a little bit smaller, but he's shifty. He's got scoring ability. That makes that line a little bit more offensive. Then the other two lines, they're going to come around. Cole Perfetti's line is going to get much better over time as Perfetti learns the game a little bit more, and then playing Scheifele with Connor and Velarde is another great move. And so you got, I believe, a lot more depth. But that being said, is that what you want? I guess the Jets had no choice because their hand was forced, right? Like they had to do something because he didn't want to be here, Dubois. So you sign him, you trade him, you get back a nice package in return. You're now thicker across all the lines. I think now for the first time, and you can comment on this, I'd like to hear maybe from the other listeners as well. I think this is the first year where you could argue that you could roll four lines and not suffer anything, which I think is going to help the Jets, because I think they've in general over the last 5-7 years have played the first and second line too much. They already get extra time playing the power play. They're already on the ice at the end of the game when the other team has pulled their goalie for a chance to score and get an empty net goal. So they already get more minutes than the third and fourth line already. And now you're going to shift them every second shift and sit the third and fourth line for playing 6-7 minutes a game. I just don't think it's smart. I like playing the fourth line 13 to 16 minutes a game. I think that's good. And I think it makes Scheifele's line and Perfetti's line fresher, especially at the end of the game. It makes them stronger, makes them more deadly. So that's my take on it. So how about you?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think, and I 100% agree with you. I think, the Jets have this history with, and I don't know if it's one kind of tied to the other, but in the second half of the season, they have this ability to sort of fizz out, really strong first halves, and then when the games get really, really tough, they kind of have these second half tailspins, and it almost cost them a playoff spot last year.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
Wondering if part of those tailspins are those top two lines just hitting the wall at times.
Yeah, I would agree. And that always happens around January, February through the hard grind. After Christmas, it gets a little bit harder. And that's where the games get harder to play. They get tougher. Teams play a little bit more, like the competition and the intensity of games ramps up because they're getting closer to playoff time. I agree with you. So you need more in the tank, not less in the tank. So I really believe this is the system, because the teams that win, look at Vegas. They rolled four lines. I think the fourth line could have played as much time as the first line, except for power play. So to me, that's how you have to play to keep your lines sharp, to keep everybody engaged. And you're stronger that way if you can roll. And I heard Rick Bowness say in the post-game interview on Saturday evening, I guess it was, after the game, and he said he feels comfortable having Kupari's line out at the end of the game as easily as Scheifele. He says, I can have Rasmus Kupari out there with the Nemestikov and Morgan Barron, and I have no problem having them out there at the game. Yeah, Morgan Barron, having him out there at the end of the game to play against the other team's top line. No problem. And I agree, because they're all smart players. They're defensively minded. So it's good. It's a good thing.
So I wonder, in hindsight, we're talking about a trade that benefits both sides.
Yeah.
LA
what was LA's angle? LA's angle was
that bid that running that second line. LA gets that second line center behind Anze Kopitar. The Winnipeg Jets get three defensively responsible players, which had been sorely lacking in their team.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could argue, just even on Saturday's game alone, between Velarde, Iafallo, and Kupari, they had, I think, 3 or 4 points combined in the game, maybe even 5 points combined in the game on Saturday. So is Dubois getting 5 points a game? I don't know. Good question. And you know what? Here's the interesting thing. I was going to throw this out there since we're chatting about this. The thing
Sure.
I love your Luc Dubois' game, I love having a big center, a big guy who can control the ice, drives the other team crazy, hard to check, hard to control in front of the net. But that guy, that Dubois playing that way, and I don't know what his thing was. I just get the sense he's kind of a mercurial player. Like he was like that in Columbus, and it drove Tortorella nuts. Not that I'm defending Tortorella, but I'm just saying when you get guys that play with all his ability and talent, that play the way they should once every 5 games, if I was a coach, it would drive me nuts the other 4 games because he plays one way that one game and he gets 3 points. He's house on fire. He just controls the whole game. He controls everything. And then he goes 3 or 4 games and he completely vanishes. That's how it was with the Jets. And it just seemed like there was
It's
more times than not, he looked very disinterested and he was more a passenger than a captain. He was more along for the ride as opposed to being a driver. And he should be a driver on whatever team he's on. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about tonight. Against certain teams, certain times, he might not be motivated. But against the Jets, team he played with for the last 2 years, he wants to show up the Jets and show up the fans. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be motivated, which I don't really like because it's going to be hard for the Jets to play against them tonight. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he just does another sleepy Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm not really interested in what's going on game, but more often than not, when he's motivated for whatever reason, he is very hard to play against. And I'm frightened of which one is going to show up. But anyway, but that for me is what frustrated me about it. And that's why so far, at least for the first pair of games, I mean, the Jets, how have you thought they've looked against the Flames? They should have won. They all played Calgary. It was only because of Markstrom standing on his head that
Yeah.
the Flames won the game. And then on Saturday, Hellebuck he didn't play that great. He let in a couple of soft goals. They should have easily won 6-2 or 6-1. I mean, but anyway, they dominated Florida. They controlled the game. I was there the second period. I mean, the Jets totally controlled the play and the flow and the tempo and all the forechecking. So I'm saying the Jets look good so far. And you could argue the Jets might make out much better over the long haul of an 82-game season by having Velarde, Iafallo, and Kapari in their lineup on a regular basis. Hopefully none of the 3 get injured. But I'm saying I think the sum of those parts could be much more valuable to the Jets over the course of 82 games than a healthy and motivated Pierre-Luc Dubois, because we've had him for the last 2 years and we haven't really done anything. So
Yeah. Rob also making the comment, but he believes that PLD is on the Kings' third line, which excuse me, which I just looked at today, is actually correct, which is interesting.
who's the first line center is Kopitar. Who's the second line center?
Hang on a second. I'm going to pull it up again. I had it earlier because I was looking at it today.
Can you believe it? He's getting, oh no, mind you, this year he's only making the 5 million or the 6 million, or no, $5 or $6 million. But I'm saying he's potentially an $8 million a year center playing on the third line. Oh, okay. I guess if that's how it's going to be, but I'd find a way to put him on the first 2 lines. If he's not going to play center, put him on left wing. I mean, he would be an awesome player on the left wing too. The same
Oh,
as
here it is. Okay. The Kings' projected lines are as follows: Byfield, Kopitar, Kempe, Fiala, Dubois, Lafreniere, Moore, Deneau, Kaliev, Grunstrom, Lazat, Lewis, Anderson, Doughty, Jabertrop, Waugh, Burfoot, Spence, and in goal Cam Talbot, Helpy Scratches, Lee, Anderson, Dolan, and England.
Yeah. So it depends on, I guess, what you consider to be the second line or the third line, with the Deneau centering the one and Dubois centering the other. But yeah.
And then the Jets projected Lions, Shifley centering Connor and Velarde, Perfetti centering Ehlers and Nito Ryder, Lowry centering Iafallo and Appleton, Kapari centering Barron and Nemestikov, and the D lines, Morrissey, DeMello, Samber, Pion, Schmidt, Dillon.
Identical to Saturday.
Yeah.
Is Hellebuck scheduled to start too?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would maybe what that would tell me is perhaps we see Laurent Brossoit Thursday against Vegas.
Yeah.
He might have some momentum against his former team. Um, Now, Eric brings up something interesting, and that is Alex Iafallo might be motivated as well. Could that be a factor that the three players that the Jets have
Oh,
from
sure.
LA be motivated?
Sure. But it's not the same as playing in your old building, right? They're playing like when the Jets go to LA, I think it might be a little bit different, but still, it'll be. I just wanted Dubois as a giant. I want him to be a sleeping giant. I don't want him to wake. I don't want anybody to crank him. I don't want Brendan Dillon to put a glove in his face and get him ticked off. I just want him, just let him sleepily go through the game. Maybe he gets an assist here or there. He kind of like he was for 60-70% of the games that he played with the Jets. He was kind of there, but he didn't dominate. And that's what I'd like to see from Pierre-Luc Dubois. I hope I'm right. I may be wrong because I have a feeling he's going to be motivated, but we'll see.
In other words, there's the old saying, don't poke the bear, don't wake the bear, don't strike the bear, don't,
Yeah.
What did you see in the home opener as far as the atmosphere? You made the comment to me on the weekend when we saw each other. It wasn't really sold out. It was 13,500.
Yeah.
What did you make of the atmosphere from where you were?
Well, the atmosphere was good, but boy, oh boy, a Saturday afternoon game on a nice day, and you can't get a sellout for your home opener. Now, I guess maybe it's the team too. Maybe people just aren't. I mean, but Florida was in the Stanley Cup final last year. I mean, they got some good players. It was fun to watch Kachuk and Barkov play.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that Florida team, they are not the same team that won the Stanley Cup. They lost a lot of players. Wow. Like Gagudas is gone. They have that Ekman Larson is in there now.
Bennett is injured.
Bennett is injured. Reinhardt played, but and also Ekblad was injured, so Ekblad didn't play. They lost.
He's out for most of the year, and as is Montour.
Yeah, Montour wasn't there. Like that is not the same team that was in the Stanley Cup final last year, and that upset the Bruins and the Leafs and so on. It's a very different team. But anyway, all that to say, if maybe the Jets had hosted the Bruins or the Leafs or even somebody within their division like Minnesota or St. Louis, maybe there would have been a sellout. But to be short 1,000, 1,500 people for your season opener home game during prime time on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, you can't, like, you got access to all the kids, like all the young people. There's nothing with work conflicts or children conflicts, and wow, you can't get a sellout.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that concerning to you?
I don't know if it's because I know you and I talked about this. I think a lot of people, I think there's a few factors. I think the Jets have lost some season ticket holders because of COVID and because of that whole thing with, and I'm not making any judgment over who gets vaccinated or who not. I have my own personal view, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just saying the Jets had to make a decision about who they were going to let come back to watch games and how they would come back with masks. You had to be vaccinated and all those things. And they decided that. And of course, if you don't think that same way and you're a season seat holder, then you could take it personally. And I think a lot of season seat holders did and just said, oh, I'm one of the 1 in 15 or 1 in 20 that you don't want because of your policy decision on vaccinations and masking and whatever else. So I guess you don't want me as a season ticket holder. And people turned in their season tickets, and a lot of season tickets got turned in after COVID and sort of the result of that. But that's everywhere because everybody had to face that. So that's not unique to the Jets, right? It's kind of the same everywhere. So I think that's a part of it. I think also there's fatigue. I think people are tired of paying a lot of money for the Jets. I think interest rates going up, and I think people, and now inflation is rising. everything is costing more, even buying a car, getting a loan for a house or a car or anything. I just think money is at a premium. And the first thing, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep your season seats, or are you going to make sure that you can pay your rent or pay your mortgage? I'm going to pay my mortgage.
And your family has a roof on their head and a car to drive and food.
Yeah. Now, right. Now, some people could argue and say, well, the people that go to Jet games, they don't need to worry about food on the table, whatever. They're not the same as lower income people. Yeah, that may be true, but I don't think there's many rich folk here. And I think there's a lot of season seat holders that share season tickets. I think a lot of them are regular folk, and they've just got regular jobs, and they share a season seat with 3 or 4 friends. They go to 1 out of every 4 games. They maybe go to 8 games or 10 games a year, not 41. And those guys just decide to, you know what, do you still want to keep your tickets? You know what? That's a lot of money for me. You know what? I don't want to do that. I want to spend it on something else. I could still watch the games on TV. If I want to go to a game, I can buy one game, 1 or 2 a year, make it a treat thing, right? And then away you go. So I think there's that. And then I think there's also, so there's money, like the cost of everything. I think there's COVID. And the other thing I think is that I think fans are just a little bit tired of the way things have gone with the Jets and this whole, are they in it to win it? Is it happening? Is it not happening? And I think there's this real apprehension. And now they traded Dubois. They got these 3 pieces. I think there's just this hesitant, like, are they in it? Are they not in it? Are we sure? Now they signed Scheifele and Hellebuck. That's a huge bump. That should have been done a month ago. I know you say that now, but if they'd done it a month ago, would they have sold more season tickets? Maybe. I don't know. So I think there's a lot of people waiting to see. How about for you? What do you think it is?
Well, I can tell you as a guy that hasn't been to a Jets game since I went actually to the last game before the NHL shut down for the season because of COVID.
Right.
And back in the bubble. And I can honestly say that you hit on a lot of my concerns about why I haven't been to a Jets game. Money, getting in and out when I can watch the game on TV. If they don't play well, I can switch the channel. Excuse me. And then the other thing is popcorn. Like, I understand that season ticket holders have, food discounts. But am I really gonna spend $20 on popcorn for the 10 games or 20 games that I go to? Like, that adds up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I feel is like, are they in or are they out as far as winning? And you know what? I think it was you that I had this conversation with. Winnipeg hockey fans are smart. They're knowledgeable. I think you were mentioning that in regards to another issue at the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
But in general, I just think people's disposable income that they used to have is no more because of reasons that you've already stated.
Yeah.
And then I know even for my own business, like I run a business and there are business decisions that have to be made. And sometimes it's not good to make those decisions. And Jets games and sporting events in particular, to be honest, as somebody that went to a lot of Moose games and a lot of Jets games when they came back, I've been to like 3 Bomber games in the last 5 years. So, since COVID, I've been to maybe 5 sporting events. I for sure haven't been to a Goldeye game. Some of that is my schedule. Some of that is, the convenience of just being able to watch it somewhere else. And if it's not a good game, I can watch something else.
Yeah.
And it's not sort of wasting my, I don't want to say it this way, but like wasting my money if, they don't have a good season, right? And sure, like for me, like I've had this really hard time up until a month ago to figure out, I've had this hard time to figure out of like, are the Jets rebuilding or are they, just retooling? And I think we got that symbol, like you said, 2 weeks ago when Scheifele and Hellebuck signed. But yes, our competitive window is still there, right? So
yeah. I think too, it has a lot to do, or as I should say, a lot, it has a little bit to do with. I think there's also it's just a honeymoon phase. I think Winnipeg fans, they're smart hockey fans, and I think that all that time, like the first 8 to 10 years, the Jets could have had a horrible team, and the fans still came to the games, whatever. And now that honeymoon phase is over. Now they have to work to keep the fans, to work to sell season tickets. They never even got to work to sell season tickets. They just sold them. Everybody wanted them. And now, not so easy. Now you got to work. Now you're going to have to make a sales pitch. You're going to have to make, you have to prove that we're in it to win it. And I think that's a little bit unique to the Jets. I know they spent a lot of money refurbishing the arena.
How is that, by the way, from what you've seen?
It looks very nice. They did some very nice things. They have that new prestige lounge or premium lounge, whatever else, which is very nice. But the other thing they did, which I don't know if it was last year, but I just noticed it because I don't show up on that side of the rink. But on the side that faces Portage Avenue, they've got this electronic list of all the season seat holders, and they scroll through the names, which is actually really nice. Like you have some recognition. Like that's something, I don't know if they found that from another team. They do that because I know they have to learn from each other. One team learns from another and so on. But some of these things, they're smart. You've got to appreciate the fans. You've got to make them feel valued, and especially your season seat holders. And I think the Jets, I don't want to take them for granted, but if you don't have to work that hard, you're not. And now they got to work hard to get season ticket holders. And
I think you and I had this discussion at the end of last year about maybe taking their season ticket holders a bit for granted.
Maybe
having to work.
I don't want to read minds. I can't say. I don't want to put that type of thinking into somebody's head because I can't say that because I don't know that. I don't work in those circles, and so
no, and that's interesting because I think that remotely I don't think it's just a Winnipeg problem either. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, but let's talk. Okay, that's enough. I want to talk hockey. I don't want to talk season ticket sales anymore. Everyone's saying, "Why aren't you guys talking about hockey?"
Yeah, well, that was just that. And if it's a generational thing, she said our parents are getting older too, and she means talking about the younger generation, just have other things. So possible too. I mean,
possible.
20-somethings don't really go to Jets games unless they have the money or the tickets from somebody. So,
or they get invited by their parents or their grandparents to go.
So, yeah, true that. Anyway, Rick, what have you thought about Connor Bedard's play so far through 3 or 4 games?
He's been very good. Chicago's played very, very well. I'm actually surprised at how well they played. They really hammered the Leafs there on the Leafs at home. When the Leafs were at home, last night 5-1, 4-1, or 5-1, whatever it was.
4-1,
yeah. So they've played well, Chicago, but it's a long season. I think Bedard, he's riding an emotional wave. A huge part of it is emotion. The same thing was for Crosby. The same thing was for McDavid. What's going to happen is because they're young, they're 18 years old, and their emotions. The game always came easy for them playing against other people their age. Now they're playing against grown men. Guys that are 7 to 10 years older than them, fully muscular, fully developed, can skate just as well as they can, have learned lots of how to play the game. And I think what's going to happen is I think Bedard is going to ride this wave. He's going to look really, really good. And then that grind, that 82 game grind, games every second day, every third day, maybe you get a few days off, then every day, every other day, boom, boom, travel, game. That is going to wear on a young guy who's never gone through it before. And I think you're going to see him hit a wall at some point. They all do. I remember Crosby fell off the map. So did McDavid and everything. What's wrong with McDavid? Yeah, he's a kid. He's 18 years old. Give him a break. So I think it's going to happen to Bedard too. Now, when it happens, I don't know. Will that be November, December? But I'm saying by the new year, by January 1, I think his play and just overall his impact on Chicago's game is going to start to taper a little bit. So,
is there too much pressure being put on the kid?
No. They have
I see the kid doing media interviews every single game.
That's the game. You signed up for the ticket. You don't want the media. Don't be a superstar. It's for Crosby. It's for Gretzky. It's for Bedard. It's for Lemieux. You want to be a superstar hockey player? You got to deal with the media.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like what?
Interesting enough, but I still, based on what I saw from Chicago this week, I
Yeah.
don't think they're a playoff team.
Oh, I don't think there's anybody debating you on that. Sorry. I don't think there's anybody debating you on that. I don't think they're a playoff team either. They played
That
well
that
against the Leafs. It's
that
one game.
lineup to me seems to have a lot of holes in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
They'll
honestly
be
reminds me of the lineup that Crosby had as a rookie.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Chicago, I looked again because I could not believe it. They have first and second round picks for the next 3 years. It's obscene how many picks they have. They have multiple picks in the first and second and third round over the next 3 years because of all the trades they made, trading away some of their talented players and some of their older veterans and so on. And they're going to be able to build either through the draft or through acquiring other young players by trading away the draft picks, because you can't pick all those guys and put them in your lineup. You won't be able to, because you won't be able to afford them all. But I'm just saying they'll be able to add pieces. And I think not this year, but what's Bedard? He's 18. In 5 years from now, what is it, 2023? By the 2028 season, Chicago's going to be in the discussion for being a cup contender, because they're going to put really nice pieces around Bedard. He's going to come into his own as long as he stays healthy. I mean, anything can happen with injuries, but I don't think they're going to look fantastic some games, and they're going to look very average other nights. And then as a Bedard, like I say, he's going to get tired. The grind is going to wear on that 18-year-old body. I just think it's going to be hard for the Blackhawks to keep up. But for now, anytime anybody wins against the Leafs, I'm happy. So what are you going to say?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Although I was happy yesterday to see Bedard didn't win. We are who they thought they were in Northern Alberta, Rick. What is with the 0-2 Oilers? Their goaltending, just like we said, can't stop a puck.
Yeah. But it's 2 games.
2 games, but a lot of
Jack
questions.
Campbell has not looked good. I just saw the one game. It was not good. But you know what? It's 2 games. They have too much talent on that team. They'll figure it out. I'm not that I'm worried about the Oilers. I'm not worried. I could care less about them. But I'm just saying they have too much talent on that team. McDavid and Draisaitl aside, they have lots of talent on that team with Ekholm and Nurse, and then Kane and Nugent Hopkins, and they'll be fine. It's 2 games. Listen, if they went in the middle of the season, if it was the middle of January and they lost 3 games on like in a row, so what? It's the middle of the season. Nobody would care less. It's just because it's the beginning of the season. It looks 0-2. You haven't won a game yet. Okay. Some teams are 1-1. Some teams are 2-0. Do you think a team that's 2-0 is going to go 82-0? Ain't going to happen. So, if I'm in Oilerland, if I'm in Oilerland, I'm not worried.
Same with Austin Matthews being on pace for 200 plus goals after 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. You think he's going to score 90 or he's going to get 82 goals this year? He's not going to get 82 goals. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
What else has surprised you, Ed?
Well, I wanted to ask you about, because I watched the end of the game. I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched the last period of the Rangers, and who were they hosting? They beat 2-1. Who was that? Who were they playing?
They played it
was their home opener. Oh, it was Arizona. Now I remember. It was Arizona. They played Arizona. They won 2-1. And I know it's Wheeler. He plays on the 4th line.
And he got benched in that game.
In the Arizona game?
Yeah, he got benched. He didn't finish the game. He wasn't on the ice for the 3rd period.
Really?
Yep. I noticed that the other night.
Was that the Arizona game, or was that the game before? It was the Arizona.
When was the Arizona game? Last night? Okay, no, sorry, it was the day before where he got benched.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought, because I saw him playing. But he plays the 4th line. And you know what was interesting? I was just thinking, actually, this is just kind of interesting the way life is. I mean, hockey is a little microcosm of life. Yeah. But, you get a guy who comes into the NHL. He was a 1st-round pick, gets selected by the Bruins, and gets traded to to Atlanta, right? Or Arizona. Was it Arizona? No, it was Atlanta. Yeah, it was Atlanta. And then he's with Atlanta, then comes to Winnipeg, and then he's kind of in his prime. Does really well with the Jets. He's their captain, signs a $8 million a year contract or 7.75, whatever it is. He gets bought out. His last 2 years are not great. Gets bought out of his last year, signs a league minimum contract with the Rangers, and goes from being a first line right winger to being a fourth line guy who gets benched for large chunks of games within 2 years. 2 years ago, at the start of the 2021 season, he was the top line right winger of the Winnipeg Jets. And now 2 years later, he's making minimum salary and hardly getting 5 to 10 minutes a game. And it's just interesting how life changes, right? You have to adapt with life. It's a great lesson in life that life changes around you. You age, things change, and you either have to adapt or life will pass you by. And with Wheeler, I just think like what's going through his brain. Like 2-3 years ago, he was on the ice when you're his team, when the Jets were up 2-1, home game, season opener. You know who would be on the ice? Blake Wheeler. Now he's not even thought of to be on the ice, and that's 2 years later. He's an afterthought. It's just 2 years. He goes from that to this. And I just thought, wow, I wonder what's going through his brain. Like, is he just like, wow, have I ever fallen off? Or is he still humble enough that he says, hey, I'm going to enjoy everything of this last season that I get because this is probably going to be my last? You wonder, but just interesting how the game just changes. Guys come in, guys go, guys don't sign new agreements. Do you know, did you read about all the free agents that weren't signed? There's like, I heard there was like 40 or 50 guys from last year.
There was a whole bunch of them on PTO.
Some of them got PTO. Some of them
there was a whole bunch of them on. There was a whole bunch of them on PTOs that didn't even get a new contract or a contract.
Right. Some of them got PTOs and then they got cut. But some guys, they didn't even get a PTO. They're not. Matthew Perreault, there's a bunch of these guys. They just kind of all of a sudden, there's nothing. You know, the music stops. It's like musical chairs. Music stops. I don't got a chair to sit on. Now, what do? Do I go play in Europe? Or do I stay in shape and hope that my agent can find something if there's an injury in another team? Okay, maybe. But I couldn't believe all the guys that were in the league last year that don't have contracts. It's just like, wow. There's such turnover.
Is that a function of the salary cap, Rick?
A lot of it is, I think, yeah, because as you get older, you're supposed to demand more money. And if you're not willing to take less money, then they can find a younger guy with more energy, more enthusiasm, more speed, who can play for a lot less money, and you have a lot more upside, a lot less chance of injury. That's the other thing. As you get older, higher risk for injury, especially strains, you know, a pull of the groin, a pull of the calf that take a long time to heal when you're in your mid-30s. So I'm just saying there's a lot of risk to sign. Like it used to always be, oh, there's so much risk playing a young guy. We want veterans. I think it's done a complete flip-flop now with the salary cap and everything else, that now teams say there's so much risk signing a veteran because of his health, because he wants.
We're not that far removed from it being the other way around. Paul Maurice would always say that I would favor the veteran over the young player every day, all day, basically. And that was like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And now it's like the younger player gets the benefit of that spot.
That's what I'm saying. I think it has completely flipped. It's completely flipped. Teams are way younger than they used to be, way younger, even compared to when the Jets came back, like in 2011, when the Jets started that lineup, those were all there was nobody under the age of 20. Well, maybe Wheeler and Little were kind of there 24. I think Ladd was maybe 25, but I'm saying all the rest of the guys, when you look at Oduya and Stapleton and Antropov and Thorberg and you just name your guys, that those were all older guys in their late 20s. They were all veterans. And now that model, I just don't think you still need veterans, but I just don't think the only veterans you keep now are the veterans that can produce. The veterans that cannot produce, you can get younger guys to do that on the third and fourth line. You don't have to pay a guy $3 or $4 million to grind it out the third and fourth line. You can get a young guy to do that and do it with a lot more enthusiasm and pay him a lot less money. So, but
And
anyway,
again, that's the byproduct of the salary cap.
Yep.
So it's interesting.
yeah, yeah.
And,
And
and
you know,
that's why you wonder if the union will start clamoring for expansion so more of their union members can get jobs.
oh, I heard there's talk. They're saying it's on the burner. Where, excuse me, how far down the road it is? It's a good question, but I heard was it Bettman talk about it in
Yeah,
person? I saw
somebody
an
thought they
interview.
wanted to be the first North American lead the 34 teams. So
Yep. And
make
there's
it,
lots of markets that they haven't tapped in. I heard a huge one is Utah. They want to get into Utah. They want to get into Houston.
yeah.
They'd like to get into what other city? There was one other larger city that I hadn't thought, whatever. But and then they'd still like to, if possible, to get another team either into Southern Ontario or even into Quebec City. I think is still there, similar to Winnipeg. They're on their radar, but I don't know. I think the NHL says all the right things. I'm not sure that they're enthused about going to Quebec, but because I think they could get a lot more money, or they could get money in Utah, they could get money in Houston, but we'll see. So we got
Yeah,
about 7 minutes left.
you have to weigh that expansion versus relocation for you get more money expanding than relocating. So
Yeah. Well, it's the ultimate question. What
Sorry.
are we going to do with the Arizona Coyotes, right? They keep talking and talking and
Yeah,
talking.
that's one thing too. The commissioner kind of seemed to hint at one of his comments this week that perhaps we'll know something about Arizona come the new year.
Okay.
Some formality because apparently they're trying to give that new arena a shot in Mesa, Arizona. Well,
yeah.
How many more times are you trying to do things for the definition of insanity, right?
Yep.
But he's kind of been that stubborn individual that seems to think it can work in Arizona way back when. Anyway, really quickly this week, but the Jets have a couple games. Home to LA tonight, home to Vegas on Thursday, at Montreal on Saturday.
Edmonton.
Before they host St. Louis. Edmonton, yeah. Edmonton on Saturday, and then they're home to St. Louis on Tuesday. And that's the NHL's Frozen Frenzy, Rick.
What does that mean?
All 30 teams are in action starting 15 minutes apart.
Yeah, I saw that the game start is at 7:45. What kind of a start time is that?
That's why, because starting at 5 o'clock, it's the Leafs and Capitals. There's another game at 5:15, 5:30, 5:45, 6.
So like every 15 minutes a game starts?
Yeah.
Around the whole league?
And around the whole night, and then the latest game is like 10 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah, probably in LA or Vancouver.
Vegas and Philadelphia, I think.
Okay.
So that's the unique way. So they're gonna have a whip around show for that.
Okay.
There's a 3-hour window where there's like 10 games going on at once.
Okay.
So it's gonna be cool. But what do you think the Jets will do this week?
Well, I think they're going to be in tough. LA is a very good team. Vegas is a very good team. Edmonton is going to be already, if they haven't won by then, they're really going to be nasty and looking for a win. So 3 games before our next show, but the Jets have played well. I don't know what you think. I think the Jets could easily be 2-0. I think Hellebuck has to be better, but I'm going to be a realist. I'm going to really try this year to be a realist, I'm going to take off my rose-colored glasses, right? And be a realist and say, I think the Jets, if they can go 1-1-1 against these 3 teams.
You're doing the old Michael, right?
I know, but these are all playoff teams that were in a better playoff position last year than the Jets. So if the Jets can go 1-1-1 against these 3 teams, I would be very happy.
Yeah, I agree. 1-1-1 for me.
Yeah. They can get 3 out of 6 points. That would be amazing.
Yep. I just think, though, I wonder if they need to go 2-1 just because 2 of these games are at home.
Let's see how they play. I want to see how they play tonight after, because I get this sense they go up and down, up and down. I want to see them play consistently. I think they can win against LA. They got to
Yeah.
use their 4 lines, play like they did on Saturday. They play like they did on Saturday, and Hellebuck is a little bit sharper. He's got to play better. He's letting in 4 goals a game right now. He's got to be better. Those goals he let in, a lot of them were soft wrist shots from 30 feet out. You can't let those in. You can't. So,
Anyway, we are back. That's Monday. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you for the comments. Rob, Kat, Eric. I may have missed a couple. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We're back next Monday, Red. I'll do the show wrap up with you before I let you go. Once we let our listeners go here. So just hang around if you can for a minute. Okay, we'll be right back, everybody. We'll see you next Monday. Goodbye from Winnipeg.